The Assyrians flipped the script. While most people think empires are built on trade, culture, and smart diplomacy, the Assyrians built their empire on fear, cruelty, and a level of brutality that shocked even their enemies. So why did these methods work for so long? And what finally caused their terror machine to collapse? You're about to find out. Imagine the ancient city of Assur, perched on the Tigris. For centuries, it was just a modest trading hub, living in the shadows of more powerful neighbors and often paying tribute to foreign overlords. The real turning point came around 1360 BC, when Ashur-bu-alit reigned from 1365 until 1330 BC, stepped onto the stage. Unlike his predecessors, who styled themselves as mere governors serving the god Assur, Ashur-u-alit broke tradition by calling himself king, a small word with massive implications. With political shrewdness, he allied with the rising Hittite Empire, leveraging their power to crush the old Hurrian Mitanni kingdom, which had dominated northern Mesopotamia for centuries. One historian even calls the victory the birth of the first Assyrian Empire. Ashur-u-alit expanded his control beyond Assur, capturing key cities like Nineveh and pushing Assyrian borders outward. In just a few decades, Assyria went from a backwater state to a regional powerhouse. They seized fertile farmlands stretching from the Taurus Mountains to the Tigris Valley, creating the economic backbone for future expansion. What's more, Ashur-u-alit's diplomacy extended far beyond Mesopotamia. He exchanged letters with Egyptian pharaohs, appearing in the famous Amarna letters, where he demanded recognition as an equal among the great kings of the Near East. So in one bold generation, Assyria transformed from a provincial outpost into a kingdom that others had to take seriously, a foundation that would, centuries later, become the brutal war machine we remember today. Before we move on to the next section, please don't forget to subscribe if you've liked the video so far. Fast forward to the 9th century BCE. King Ashur-nasir-pal took the empire to a whole new level of brutality. His own inscriptions read like horror stories. Of conquered cities, he used to brag, "I took their men, young and old, as prisoners. Of some, I cut off their feet and hands. From others, I cut off their noses, their ears. I burned their children with fire." Revolt was met with impalement, mass executions, or worse. It was terror as state policy. The message was clear. Cross Assyria, and this is your fate. And yet, Ashur-nasir-pal didn't skimp on the champagne when at home. He built a brand new capital at Nimrud, with towering walls and even exotic gardens. And for its grand opening, he threw an astonishing 10-day banquet for 69,574 guests. Yes, 10 days, roughly 7 football stadiums worth of people in one palace feast. So the brutal king was also a lavish host. He showed off wealth and power with every victory parade and royal party. By the late 8th century BCE, Assyria had an even scarier name. King Tiglath-pileser III, 745 to 727 BCE, reformed the army and cranked up the dread. He made population transfers a routine tactic. Biblical accounts and Assyrian records agree. After conquering parts of Israel and Syria, Tiglath-pileser carried them into exile in Assyria. It got worse under his successors. When Samaria fell in 722 BCE, Assyrian sources boast that 27,280 Israelites were uprooted. Entire regions were emptied. Leadership, craftsmen, and families all sent off to far corners. Modern estimates put the total relocated over 250 years of Assyrian rule at around 4.4 million people. Deportation was empire management. Spread conquered peoples thin, mix them up, and revolts become nearly impossible. Does all of this sound harsh? Well, Assyrian kings liked to think of themselves as gods on earth who maintained cosmic order. The art they left behind is surprisingly sophisticated. Huge bas-reliefs in Ashurbanipal's palace show him feasting at a royal banquet and burning lions on horseback. Lion hunting was a prized royal sport and symbolized subduing chaos. And yes, those terrifying winged bulls, lamassu, you've seen in museums, are real Assyrian palace guards. The British Museum even notes lion hunting was represented in Assyrian art, most famously in the reliefs from King Ashurbanipal's palace. But Assyria was also a culture engine. King Ashurbanipal took a special pride in knowledge. He built what some call the world's first financial library. Roughly 30,000 clay tablets were collected in Nineveh. He personally ordered scribes across the empire to send copies of ancient texts, including the Epic of Gilgamesh, to stock it. The lion-hearted king wasn't just brute force. He was shrewd enough to loot knowledge along with temples. Beyond books, the Assyrians built infrastructure. Their engineers famously constructed the first aqueducts and paved roads. These roads let armies and couriers speed from city to city. In fact, messages could cross the empire in just days on the royal highway. And speaking of armies, they even pioneered sophisticated siegecraft. Assyrian armies invented mobile siege towers and heavy battering rams, training teams just to break walls. So yes, they ruled through fear, but they also built an impressively organized bureaucracy and economy. Assyria's expansion peaked under Ashurbanipal and his fathers, sweeping south to Egypt and east into Iran. In 647 BCE, Ashurbanipal famously struck a vicious blow at the kingdom of Elam in modern Iran. He razed its capital, Susa, leaving ashes as he boasted, "I destroyed the ziggurat of Susa. I devastated the provinces of Elam. I sowed salt on their fields." And in the end, Susa never fully recovered from that attack. Meanwhile, Assyrian armies ruled all the way to the Mediterranean. They even conquered Egypt from 673 to 663 BC. Assyria held control of the Nile Delta. Elam and Egypt dealt with Assyrian overlords or puppet kings for decades. To the west, tiny Levantine kingdoms fell in sequence. Earlier kings like Shalmaneser III conquered much of the Levant, though Damascus held out for a while. And under Sargon, Assyria finally took Gaza and even repelled an Egyptian relief army. In Judea and Samaria, mass deportations emptied out cities. Around 27,000 Judeans were exiled by 701 BCE. By 650 BCE, Assyria spanned Egypt's border across Syria to the headwaters of the Tigris. Truly an empire of world conquerors. Want to understand the world better? Start with history and subscribe to our channel. But like Icarus flying too high, Assyria could not hold its height forever. After Ashurbanipal's death in 631 BC, the empire began to crack. Around 615 BC, Babylonian revolts under Nabopolassar, allied with the Medes from Iran, pressed into Assyrian heartlands. By 612 BC, the unthinkable happened. The mighty capital, Nineveh, was besieged for 2 months and finally stormed. Sinshar-ishkun, the last king to rule from Nineveh, perished in the flames. When Nineveh fell, its great palaces and temples were looted and demolished, and the empire's center was destroyed. Some refugees tried to regroup in northern cities, but by 609 BC, even the last Assyrian holdout, the city of Haran, was captured by the same Babylonian Median coalition. Ashurbanipal II, a pretender king, vanished after failing to retake Haran. And just over 20 years after Ashurbanipal, the most powerful state of the Near East had collapsed to dust. What remains of Assyria today is a mix of myth and marvel. In antiquity, its fall was depicted as divine retribution for wicked kings. Biblical and later Greek writers sensationalized the empire's cruelties and told grim tales. Legend even says Nineveh's last king immolated himself on a pyre of treasure rather than face defeat. Assyria became the ultimate evil empire in the ancient imagination. But archaeology has nuanced that image. Mid-19th century explorers dug up Ashur-nasirpal's winged bulls and Ashurbanipal's libraries, reminding us that Assyria also left wonderful art and text. Large relief panels of lion hunts still awe museum visitors, and tens of thousands of cuneiform tablets from the Royal Library inform historians of everything from myths to medicine. As the British Museum puts it, evacuation showed Assyria to be one of the greatest civilizations of the ancient world. Today, we have to ask, was Assyria truly evil, or did its kings simply play by the brutal rules of ancient realpolitics? Perhaps cruelty was just one side of their strategy. The other was efficient governance and cultural achievement. Either way, the Assyrian legacy looms large. They gave us epics like Gilgamesh and innovations like roads, but also graphic images of cruelty. The question remains for us, do these deeds or the stories we tell about them make an empire evil? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Here's another video history buffs enjoyed watching. Goodbye for now.